All right, so let's pick back up with the territories or regions. So these are your regions, and so they're preset. You're not going to determine what your region is. These are preset. What you do have to think about when you're looking at your candidate resumes, what you're going to determine is what region they go into. And one thing you'll learn in the participants manual is that um, the salespeople are happier when they are closer to the region they're from. So, for example, if I'm from Oklahoma, I'd be happier in, like, if you're going to move me to another region, so I'm not in region 6, I'd be happier in a region that touched the region I'm from. So that gives you a lot of options. But maybe like if I move them to 7, 4, 3, 5, 8, and it doesn't specify like I'm moving them to Montana. It's just you moving them to a region. So again, things to think about. Know these regions. Think through that. So in terms of selecting and recruiting your salespeople during an SMS's sales management simulation, there are 55 potential recruits if you're playing 10 quarters. We're playing 8, so you have 40? Is that right? So it must be 11 quarters because it's 5 per quarter, unless I've lost. I think I'm pretty good. Okay, so in period 0, so when you begin, okay, yeah, so 10 maximum. Period 0, when you begin, you already have 5, and they were all trained and hired. So if you go right now to candidates' resumes and you look at 1 through 5, that's going to be your beginning sales force. And they're going to be, at least for period 0, where they're at. The first decision you're going to make is about period or quarter 1. So you can move them around, you can change their salary, you can fire someone, you can give someone more training. All of that's your choice. And you don't have to hire all 5 going forward per quarter. That's another decision you're making. So yeah, they inherited these temporary assigned sales regions, and you can either modify or accept these assignments. The other thing to know, anytime you move to hire someone, or you, let's say one of the first 5 people, you want to change where they're at, they also have the option to quit. So if you lower their salary or if you move them far away, they can also just quit. So that's also built into the simulation. So if you give offers to 5 people, it's not a guarantee that those 5 people are going to take you up. So looking at management, if you assign one salesperson to a region, so a region as in the territory, then that's their entire territory. So if you go back and you say, I'm going to assign, one person to region 8, then that's their entire territory. As you assign more people, it gets broken up into, how many people there are. So if I have 2 people in region 8, then they each have half the territory. Other things to think about, what's the growth potential when you're thinking about the region or the territory? What's the growth potential? So as I'm hiring and assigning people, especially assigning people to regions, what's the growth potential of that particular region? So if I put a bunch of people into like Montana, Utah, what was it, Wyoming, something, I might want to think about what's the population of that region versus other regions and what the growth potential is. What are your competitors doing? How much coverage can you have? And you're probably wondering, how the heck can I find out these things? That's through the market research that you can purchase. So that's where you have to make a decision in your team. Do I need to purchase this market research or not? So one important thing to do is look at the competitors or individual manual, participant manual, and see what does each report cover that you're going to pay for. So some things that are in the manual from the salesperson perspective, they're going to perform better, and I already mentioned this, when they're assigned close to their home region. And what they're going to particularly look at in terms of staying or going is growth potential, competitor action, coverage density that impacts their potential earnings. Other considerations. One is about training. And so it's important to know that, well, Chunks decided to be crazy. When you train someone, so let's say you hire someone in period 1, they're not immediately available. They won't be available for you. So be available to make money for you into the next period after they're trained. So what it assumes is if you hire them in period 1, they're also trained in period 1 and then available in period 2. So you also have to keep that in mind in terms of your strategy. Other options are you can retrain people. So if people are doing really bad in the territory they're in or the region, you can retrain them, but that is your group's option. You never have to do that. So the key decision is if and when you're going to retrain, Chunk says. Hold on. I'm so sorry. But the key decision is, and this is important to discuss within your group, like if and when you want to retrain, is it worth losing someone for, one period to retrain them? So retraining would be training outside of that initial period. You can't get around that initial period. But if they're doing poorly later on, you can retrain them, but you take them out of the field for 1 quarter or, 1 quarter. So things to think about, you can see there. Compensation. Key things to think about. Do salespeople work harder, smarter, if paid more than competitors? How are you going to know what your competitors are paying? Who are your competitors? Well, your competitors are the other people, other groups in your industry, in your class. So how are you going to know that? Back to market research. Other things to think about. So these are all things, again, I would think about as I'm taking notes for myself when I'm making a decision. How do I balance all these things? How does this impact me purchasing market research? How does this impact me in terms of what I'm offering when I'm hiring? What is my commission rate going to be? Because commission's going to be for the same for everyone. What are my sales contests going to be? Because that's another option you have. And so I would highly recommend you thinking back and looking back on class materials regarding this, because I think there's information in there that will help you. So I mentioned earlier, very beginning, external selling versus internal selling. So internal selling is not me contacting my customers just virtually or via phone. That is me building relationships within the firm so I can have what market orientation talks about, that interfunctional coordination, where all of us in the firm are working together for a common goal. In order for that to happen, a lot of times what has to happen is that you build those relationships. And so how much time are you dedicating for your salespeople to build those relationships as a part of their job versus actually meeting, selling to customers? So is it an 80-20 split, 85-15, 90-10, 50-50? That's another thing you have to consider. So, other things to consider: how should people divide their time, salespeople divide their time between the base and premium products? What kind of pricing strategy are you going for? I'm going to double check that y'all's are week 3 readings. Actually, I will just put the reading that I'm thinking about in the materials for the simulation, so you don't have to go back. But these are really important things to think about. And I'm not going into more detail on a lot of this because I want you to think about what you've learned this semester and how you can apply that. Inventory. Actually, this is a good stopping point.